Gary is not a snail. He is an intellectual creature with an unlimited amount of knowledge, trapped in the wrong dimension. You may think Gary is just SpongeBob's pet snail, but you may be very, very wrong. What if I told you Gary is trying to escape Bikini Bottom to arrive home to his fourth dimensional world with a population of geniuses where he is the king of royalty? This theory will fundamentally indoctrinate the truth about Gary and his intelligence. This is the Gary theory. Gary Wilson Jr. is a pet of Spongebob Squarepants who secretly carries an instinctive amount of knowledge that seems unreal. Unlike the other snails found in Bikini Bottom, Gary is completely different in the way he acts. Would it be possible that Gary is not from planet Earth and is an alien? Well, there is a ton of evidence supporting that fact. There are a lot of moments in the TV show where we see references to aliens. In the episode Sandy's Rocket, SpongeBob and Patrick assume that Bikini Bottom is a different planet and go alien hunting. When Patrick tries to talk to Gary, SpongeBob tells him that the aliens are projecting their memories onto the environment and immediately shoot Gary.
Hey look, it's Gary!
Don't go near him, Patrick. Can't you see this is all a trick? The aliens are projecting our memories onto the environment.
Despite the rest of Bikini Bottom being normal citizens, it seems like Gary is indeed an alien since he was the first target. It's also very strange that Sandy would carry a puff gun for harvesting moon rocks since NASA used shovels. Sandy must be lying and carried the puff gun to eliminate Gary. She probably knew that Gary is not from here and is using SpongeBob to get to Gary. And if that's not enough evidence to convince you, then I have something for you. In the episode I Was a Teenage Gary, Squidward was in charge of pet-sitting Gary for a 3-day weekend when SpongeBob and Patrick went to a jellyfishing convention. Gary became sick, and when SpongeBob called the Dr. Fish, he came to give SpongeBob a snail plasma syringe but refused to inject it into Gary.
Here you go.
Aren't you gonna do it?
Oh, no. I'm too squeamish.
Veterinarians are responsible for giving shots to animals, and for this doctor not doing his job and instead making SpongeBob give the shots is strange. When SpongeBob accidentally got injected by the snail plasma, he started to transform into an actual snail.
See?
I believe the Dr. Fish knew what the shot does and wanted to protect himself from becoming a snail. I feel like something is up with the Dr. Fish. He has multiple identities in the TV show. Sometimes he's purple, sometimes he's orange, sometimes he's purple with orange arms, sometimes he's a pirate, and he looks strikingly similar to Dr. Manowar from the Jellyfish Convention.
And now it only hurts when you touch it.
What's the reason behind the multiple identities? What is this man hiding? What if I told you that this doctor is planning to turn the whole Bikini Bottom population into snails? Think about it. He gave a dangerous syringe that can transform any fish into a snail. Maybe Gary and the Dr. Fish are in cahoots with one another to turn the Bikini Bottom race into a bunch of snails. Although we don't know why, it does make sense. In the 1969 Apollo 11 moon mission, Neil Armstrong, along with all the other astronauts, were required to spend 14 days in quarantine in case of a moon plague. If you didn't know, NASA is very protective when it comes to quarantine since they believe that many different planets contain wide ranges of viruses and bacteria which could infect the living organisms on Earth. In Season 5, episode Fungus Among Us, the whole Bikini Bottom became infected due to a pile of algae found in SpongeBob's home. Snails are known to leave trails of slime and barf randomly. I believe this algae belongs to Gary and is an alien disease that contaminated the whole city. At the end of the episode, Gary solved the infection by eating it without getting sick or anything. And if Gary was the only thing that never got infected, it must mean that he is immune to the ick. Not to mention Gary looks nothing like a snail. Well, at least from the inside. In many episodes we are shown the insides of Gary's shell, and every time it looked completely different. One time Gary had a blue inside, another time he had a brain looking inside. He even had a butt underneath his shell. Why does Gary look different all the time? Well, it's obvious. Gary is a space alien that has superhuman transformational powers, allowing him to change himself. In the episode Help Wanted, Gary had really tiny orange pupils, whereas in the newer episodes he has black pupils and orange irises. In Sleepy Time, Gary says that in dreams one is not tempered by earthly limitations.
In dreams, one is not tethered by earthly limitations.
Maybe this is Gary referring himself to as a non-earthly being. I looked really deep and found an episode that may bring life to my point. In the episode Pets or Pests, SpongeBob brings home an ugly-looking alien worm that seems to hate Gary. I think that this is an alien from a different planet than Gary's, which could be the reason behind the feud. So now we know that Gary is an alien. Let's talk about his extraordinary intelligence. Gary is famous for his random bursts of intelligence. In the episode Sleepy Time, he surprised all SpongeBob fans with his gifted personality. SpongeBob visited Gary's dream cloud, and in it we see a huge library full of books. SpongeBob surprisingly finds Gary talking.
In dreams, one is not tethered by earthly limitations.
How the heck did Gary know the true definition of dreams? It's truly impossible to know something that you never learned. Let's hypothetically say I ask you to draw a picture of God, something you were never exposed to, or if I ask you to explain a blind person what the color blue is. It would be impossible since you need to experience something before you understand it. Gary has shown us that he is a master of poetry, but Gary doesn't know how to read. He's a snail, right? Holy shit. In the episode Rockabye Bivalve, Gary is seen reading the Bikini Bottom news. This proves that Gary is smarter than every other pet in Bikini Bottom. If you really think Gary is just a regular snail, take a look at this. In the episode Jellyfish Hunter, the blue jellyfish cut out the electricity and SpongeBob said something very insane.
I guess Gary forgot to pay the electric bill.
I guess Gary forgot to pay the electric bill. Very interesting. And that's not the only time we hear something like this. In the episode Chocolate with Nuts, SpongeBob is waiting for the mail, and every single piece of mail is for Gary, which proves that he pays for the bills.
Let's see. Gary. Hey, a magazine!
But where does he even get the money? Back in the episode Rule of Dumb, we see a family tree full of royal ancestors and descendants.
I've discovered this coffee stain, which, upon removal, reveals that Sir Gary is the true heir to the king's crown.
Gary is seen in the family tree with fish parents, which makes no sense at all. But then why is Gary even seen in this tree when he has no business there? What if Gary is an imposter that hired the starfish to put him on the tree? Here's what I think happened. Gary couldn't eat because SpongeBob barely makes money to put bread on the table. So Gary hired the starfish to add his name to the family tree so that he could become the king of Bikini Bottom. Then both SpongeBob and him could survive from tax money paid by citizens of Bikini Bottom. You might be thinking King Neptune is the king, but just remember that King Neptune is the god of the whole sea. The type of government that Bikini Bottom has is a monarchy, which is ran by kings and queens. Bikini Bottom must be a kingdom run by Gary, but the overall sea is ran by King Neptune. In the Sponge Out of Water movie, SpongeBob and Plankton were asking Gary to team up with them, and they found him running a kingdom of snails to seize them.
What do you mean, king of snails?
This proves that Gary is the monarch of Bikini Bottom. If Gary is an alien, where did he come from? Remember that poetry line that Gary said in Sleepy Time?
In dreams, one is not tethered by earthly limitations.
I think this refers for Gary hoping for a day his dream comes true, which would be to return to his fourth dimensional world. Notice the cloak Gary is wearing in the episode. It bears a striking resemblance with the cloak that Bubbles is wearing. Bubbles is a dolphin who appeared in the second SpongeBob movie and is in charge of watching Jupiter and Saturn to keep them from colliding. Bubbles went to go take a bathroom break and gave SpongeBob and Plankton the responsibility of watching the two planets without telling them what to do. I believe that Gary is from space and is working against Bubbles to collide the two planets together. He also had the power to control space and time. We even see an aggressive-looking Gary constellation in the view. In the episode Gary Takes a Bath, we see him teleporting in thin air, just like Bubbles. After SpongeBob got Bubbles fired, he returned to thank him for getting fired and gave them all magical powers to breathe out of water.
What's happening? I feel tingly.
If you didn't know how SpongeBob and Plankton reached the 4th dimensional world, it was a glitch in the time machine that brought them to the wrong place. And here's what I think happened. Gary wanted to transport to a different dimension using a time machine. The time machine glitched accidentally, sending him into Bikini Bottom. He constantly has dreams to reach the dimension where he was respected. This is similar to the time machine concept covered in my SB129 theory where Squidward died during a malfunction. The creator sneaked a bit of proof of Bubbles being a god in a very clever way. In one of the episodes, there was a painting in the background of Patrick pointing at a dolphin that looks very familiar. Could it be Bubbles? I mean, it looks almost identical to Bubbles, referring to Michelangelo's painting, The Creation of Adam. It makes a lot of sense that Bubbles is a god and Patrick is Adam. But I think I'm forgetting something. What was it? The dolphin is part of the Illuminati. His chain has a logo which theoretically proves that Gary is an extraterrestrial alien god that is part of the Illuminati. And that is the Gary theory. We recently hit 9K subscribers, which means we're very close to 10K. Honestly, I can't thank you guys enough with all the support. If you guys keep subscribing, we might even get a YouTube play button, which would be very sweet. This theory took a while to make, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. We finally revealed the truth of who Gary is. One day, Gary's dream of reaching his home planet will finally come true, but we'll wait for that to happen. With that being said, please check out my other amazing theories where I uncover the meaning behind a character and an episode. Thanks for watching the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to never miss another theory.